Hello again. This is Mackenzie from the Race, Ethnicity, and Diversity class from Quincy Daniels, Dr. Quincy Daniels, and I'm going to talk to you about the Chapter 3 critical thinking questions, and I'm going to answer them. So the first question, number 1, is discrimination can take many forms. Select a case of discrimination that you think about everyone would agree is wrong. And since I like to always be an issue and talk about the things that no one likes to talk about, I'm going to talk about how I think that most humans would think that discriminating against people and denying them the right to have food is wrong, and I think that most people would disagree on that fact. For example, if a person was Asian, like an Asian family would be denied food, not outright at a grocery store. Of course, they could go and buy food at the grocery store. That's not what I mean. I mean that they will always have lower income jobs than white people in America. This is in America I'm speaking about. So, in this case, a white person would be less likely to be imprisoned or given a less equitable job, and that the white or the Asian person would have a less income job and not be able to afford food as much, and often because they're having a lower quality of life, lower education, much more prejudice and discrimination affecting their ability to be successful according to the American standards, that they would not be given enough food, perhaps, to support their family. But this can go with any minority, like a starving black person, because they just got out of prison and they're not able to get a job because of having fraud charges on their record. They aren't able to get a house because of it. They're not able to, they feel uncomfortable going to a Salvation Army because they know maybe they'll be friends with the wrong group and maybe relapse on the drugs that made them, like, help them become getting in trouble with fraud. And it's just an imprisonment cycle that aids them to being unsuccessful and not being able to get adequate food. Sure, you could get food stamps, but some people don't qualify. So there's like a whole system. I think that everyone should have the opportunity to get food. No one should be starving. And in order to solve this problem, we also would be able to get rid of Monsanto, which is not the answer, and everyone needs to plant a garden. That is the solution that is proven to solve world hunger. We have enough food in the world to feed 7 billion people, even if that is completely overpopulated. Whew. And who is likely to condemn or who is likely to overlook the situation? I think that more middle class people would be in the position to condemn because they know how it's going to be, and the 1% who are the rich white folk wouldn't be able to understand as much and would probably just say, well, I'm eating, I worked my share, even though they probably worked squat and just inherited it. I think that that is a valid example for who would condemn and who would just overlook it. For question 2, resistance is continuing theme of intergroup race relations. Discrimination implies the oppression of a group, but how can discrimination also unify the oppressed group to resist such unequal treatment? My answer would be that because people are being oppressed and constantly put in a troubling state, being discriminated, those people would then come together because they know that they're more alike, they have more things in common, and they have the same or similar job opportunities or success in education. So those people would then come together and create a group to resist the discrimination. And once they build up their group of oppressed people, then they would be able to start protesting. Obviously, one person protesting about 5 million in a place would be unrealistic. But those people can gather together and then have their own freedom of speech, even though they'd probably get in trouble because they're the minority and white people are kind of rude. So I think that if they accept their infringement of rights is a bad thing. For example, in Africa in early 1900s, mid 1900s, all the way through the 20th century, people from probably most Europeans would come in and impose and infringe African rights and cause them to become more Europeanized. Europeans would bring in fashion, force the fashion on them. Every person pretty much wanted to be more European, more fashionable. They wanted, well, not all the time, they didn't always want it. They wanted, they were blinded, kind of. They felt like they needed to listen to them for some reason. The Europeans forced their religion on them, whereas now Africa no longer has any native tradition. Every single thing of theirs was imposed on, which is why they are no longer pure or what they used to be, which is really extremely sad. The only thing that's kind of different from everything else is African art, which is beautiful because it's less realistic. They didn't have the idea that one image could be smaller and one image could be giant, like way bigger, which this would look way far away and this would look closer up. They don't have that, which makes their art different, which is awesome, I think. 'Cause it's like art is one of the only things that they can call their own more, even though it's getting manipulated more and more because they're watching everyone else, and it's hard to stick with your own when you're watching other people come up with ideas also. So I think that can weaken a sense of solidarity because they no longer have what they knew. It weakens their sense of group because they're being yanked in multiple ways that creates them to be a different people than what they were. And the last question is voluntary associations such as National Association for Advancement of Colored People and government units such as the courts have been important vehicles for bringing about a measure of social justice. In what ways can the private sector also work to bring about an end to discrimination? My answer would be that corporations and businesses should stop discriminating against ethnic groups when they're hiring. So an African American person would be able to get a high position. Would you like to meet my sister? There she is, being really annoying and dancing to make me sidetracked. Anyway, leave. I have 50 seconds. Get away. Anyway, Marita will go in a little bit. Like 10 minutes. Okay. You're ruining this video. Corporations should hire people of minorities and make that the beautiful thing because it's important to have a diverse group of people working because it proves that people can coexist and people are equally as important everywhere, which history, especially in the 20th century, proves. People are equally as intelligent everywhere. anywhere on this earth, which is only true in obvious regards. I get mad about this. Anyway, there should also be no check mark on applications to say I'm African American, white, black, blah blah blah. I understand the ones with criminal backgrounds, but I also feel like more people of minority are in those criminal backgrounds because they're given zero opportunity, and it's kind of like they're on a trail. Everyone born of a minority is in a scary, big possibility that they will be going to prison in America.